She was really, really interested in me for a second, but I think that there might be a package being delivered. And in case you're wondering, every person that delivers a package is Winnie's mortal enemy. Just nemesis. She hates them, and I don't know why, because most of the time they're bringing packages for her, you know? Full of treats. And yet, her hatred persists. Hi kids, welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza. Winnie left us, and cheese is in the cheese spot. Always in the cheese spot. Always in the strangest position in the cheese spot. She's very sleepy. And we are here today to do the end of the year book tag. I'm a big fan of talking about books. So when you give me prompts to talk about books, I'm here for it. I did this last year. I had some fun. Let's do it again. I think this is going to go off the rails a little bit though, because even though I do love talking about books with prompts, I also don't like sticking to the prompts and blazing my own path. I am a conundrum even to myself. Let's do the end of the year book tag. The first question is, are there any books that you started this year that you need to finish? Yes. Yes, there are quite a few. There are quite a few books that I've started this year that I'm nowhere near finishing. I've put down, and at this point, some of these I think I might have to start over, but I'm not going to judge myself. Maybe if I put it on the internet, I'll hold myself accountable. One of those being Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This I borrowed from a friend, and I am 122 pages in and just put it down for no good reason. I just put it down. They most likely want this book back, so I need to return it. So I need to finish it. So that's one book I need to finish before the end of the year. I also need to finish Sunbringer. I am 118 pages into this gorgeous book. This is the sequel to Godkiller, which is another just straight up sexy book. This book I really, really enjoyed. This, even though it's very short, is a found family fantasy novel where we are following all these characters in a world where it is incredibly easy to create a god. We have our main character, Kissian, who is a god killer, and she is similar to a witcher. She's not necessarily someone that is beloved by the community, but she performs a necessary service. She travels from small town to village to settlement and eradicates gods. See, in this world, all it takes is intention and prayer and gifts and tributes, and eventually a god can form. You have gods as big as the gods of war or fire or the ocean, and gods as small as the gods of broken sandals. Gods just be popping up all over the place in this world, and after a war with the gods have now been made illegal. So Kissian is a service where she goes through and eradicates gods. We also have the point of view of Elo, and he is the former right hand to, well, he was a prince when him and Elo were very close friends and allies, and he is now the king. Elo has left his service and is now a baker. And then we have, is it Inara? I believe it's Inara, and she is a young girl who has somehow become bound to a god. He is the god of white lies, and I imagine him in my head as like a jackalope. He's kind of like this rabbit with horns and wings. He's also a point of view that you get in the story as well. I really enjoyed this for as fast as it went. It was a really fun ride, and for some stinking reason, because the first book ends on quite a momentous moment. That is the stupidest. Momentous moment? Yeah, that is a thing. A momentous thing happens, and you are left with all these characters kind of scattered in turmoil with what has happened. And this picks up almost immediately after. We are having to deal with the fallout of the ending of the first book. All of these characters now are more enlightened to the world that they're living in, having to make choices, having to deal with emotions. But yet, for some reason, this one felt like a slog, where the first one had such a quick pace to it, where it felt like there was no extra fat in that book. It was very trim. This one I just couldn't get into it, and I don't know why, and I feel like I just need to push through, but it's been long enough since I started that I don't know if I really need to restart it or not. I need to finish it. And the other book that I would really like to finish, I actually was visiting a thrift store in my area, and obviously someone's estate, someone who was an avid fantasy reader, their estates had been liquidated and all of their books had been brought to this thrift store. When I tell you, they had just so many good classic fantasy books, lots of fantasy paperbacks. Like, this person was an avid reader, and all of their books kind of ended up on these shelves waiting for new homes. And I got the entire series. What is this called? The Last Herald Mage by Mercedes Lackey. I have heard of this author, but I've never read anything from them before, and I was absolutely obsessed with these covers. I mean, look at that. Just look at it. It's a fantasy novel with a horse on the cover. The books also smell majestical, but like the horse is on every cover. I got the entire trilogy for dirt stinking cheap. And I actually did pick up this first book, which is Magic's Pawn. This is the story of Vaniel. I'm going to call him Vaniel. And he is a young man growing up in a noble household. He is the heir to this nobility seat. And he is just not necessarily understood by the people around him. He lives a very solitary existence. You're getting his point of view, so you can kind of know what's going on in his brain. He has one family member that he truly has a connection with, and everybody else just kind of sucks. He is very interested in music and beauty. He just wants to be what is it? Oh my God. Dandelion is one. A bard. He wants to be a bard. Like, he wants to be a traveling musician, but that is not in the cards for him. But everybody else sees him as like this spoiled, pretty, he's apparently incredibly attractive, but this spoiled, pretty rich boy that just like comes across as snobby and icy. But really it's because he's just so lonely and lost, and he's put up this facade of being very like hard and just harsh, when really it's to protect himself from all of the onlookers around him. And his father is done with his nonsense and ends up sending him off to train as a mage with his aunt. And his aunt sounds like she also thinks initially that he might be snobby spoiled, and he might be a little bit snobby and spoiled, but that doesn't mean he's a bad person. He also has this horse that he loves. He's going to be training in magic. There's also a cute boy where he is, and like they instantly like I think start like thinking that the other one is cute. I don't know. I was really, really enjoying it. But other books that I wanted to get to kind of started showing up, making their way. And I would really like to at least finish this book because I was having a good time with it, you know? Also the cover. Look at it. So good, right? The next question is, do you have an autumnal book to help you transition into the end of the year? And yes, but it's not autumnal, because at this point, I feel like I've gone past my autumnal times. I'm now full blown in winter, though I still love spooky stuff. I mean, it's fall all year round in my mind, right? But the book I really would like to get to kind of transition me into the colder months would be Hunger of the Gods. This is the second book in is it the Bloodsworn series? It is the Bloodsworn series by John Gwynne. The first book being The Shadow of the Gods. I read this last year and absolutely enjoyed the ever-loving out of it. This, I feel like, is perfect for the winter time because this is Norse inspired. A lot of this is taking place in very cold places. I feel like it's very icy snow. Everybody's wearing heavy furs and gathered around a fire. This is the story of a world that is existing post-gods. See, the gods got into some sort of tift argument many, many years ago. There was a great battle. Some of the gods died. Some of them were locked away forever, but the gods are no longer a physical presence in this world. Well, that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of remnants of the gods. There's an entire city that exists in the bones of a dead god. The gods, even though they're gone, they're not really gone. And there's also this underlying current of people who are being mistreated because they have a lineage that can be traced back to the gods, which can imbue them with certain personality traits, physical attributes, strengths and weaknesses. You are following 3 different points of view, one being a young man whose sister recently has passed away, and he comes into the service of a group of mercenary/warriors, another being a young woman who belongs to another group of mercenary/warriors, and the third being my absolute favorite, and she is a mother of a young boy who lives with her husband and son in a very secluded area. This was a wild ride. The end of this book literally had my jaw dropping because the stories start intertwining. You wonder how these characters are related or if they're going to meet or why we're getting these 3 points of view specifically. The predictions I also have in my mind based on some of the actions of these characters and either some of their prejudices or some of the things that they've encountered, how I think this world is going to rock their worldviews. Ugh. So I need to pick up The Hunger of the Gods. This is the second book. I think the third book has recently come out, now that I say this. I'm assuming we are going to open up right where the last book left off. This is just going to open up the world more. What's going to happen? It's going to be cold and fantasy and battles, and I hope Orca, our mother character, I know she's going to be in this, but she's my absolute favorite. I really love Orca. The next question, is there a new release that you're waiting for? No. I mean, there's always one that finds me, but there's nothing in particular. I mean, that's going to come out this year. I definitely have books that I'm excited about, have 2025 tentative release dates. I'm excited for KImberly Lemming with this absolutely bananas book is going to be coming out in 2025. You better believe I'm pre-ordering that nonsense. But there's a lot of fun, like gothic books, horror books, fantasy romance books. There's a lot of things on my radar, just nothing that is just like the book for the rest of the year. The next question is, what are 3 books that you want to read before the end of the year? I know one. Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff. I read Empire of the Vampire last year, probably around this time, was obsessed. And so I can't believe that I still haven't picked this up, seeing as how much I want to get into this story. Empire of the Vampire is the story of Gabriel, and how would you even describe him? He's kind of the boogeyman. See, in the opening of the story, he has been caught by vampires. Vampires exist in this world where the sun has been blotted out. Gabriel is the vampire's boogeyman. He is this warrior from this group of elite warriors that has been exterminated aside from Gabriel, and they are the ones taking out the vampires. Gabriel has reached like mythical levels of vampire slaughter. You open up with Gabriel being a prisoner, and he then recounts his story. He recounts the story of how he became a warrior from the time he was a young man growing up in this order of warriors, and also another period of time in his life. I believe he was in his 30s, an older, kind of battle-hardened, crotchety man who goes on an adventure that he wasn't necessarily trying to go into, kind of the how he got to where he is and how he became the boogeyman for vampire kind. I really enjoyed the ever-loving crap out of that book, and I cannot wait to see if Gabriel gets out of the situation he's in, what happened to the people that we have lost count of in this story, what the vampires are up to. There were big revelations in the first book, and I want to see where those people are. I really want to pick up this one. One's enough, right? But I've talked about like 100 books already. The next question is there a book that you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? Yeah, this one. The one I just talked about. I don't see this being any less than a 5-star for me, honestly. I think this is going to be another hit in this series that I've already come to love with just one book under my belt. And the final question is, have you already started making reading plans for next year? A little bit, kind of, nothing set in stone. I plan on continuing doing my series of vlogs where I read books that everybody else has read, and for some reason I just haven't gotten to them, because it's really helped me kind of get through stack list books that I was interested in. I did a couple years ago, read a bunch more classics, and I'd like to throw some more classics into the mix. I would like to read some more nonfiction, because those are always fun, and I always enjoy the ones I pick, because I try to pick the weirdest, most random subjects that I'm interested in, and I haven't read any of those in a while, so maybe some more nonfiction. Mostly right now, my reading plans are kind of up in the air. I think as I get closer to January, I'll make some more hard and set in stone type reading plans. Right now, we're just trying to make it through 2024, you know? Because some days it feels like everything's on fire. So if I could just make it to the end of 2024, I think it would be a success. But that, kids, is where we're going to end this book tag. If you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs who barely hung out with me, I mean, I guess Cheese hung out with me, but not by choice, just by proximity. Please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there wherever you are, and I'd love to hear about them. And we'll see you next time.